Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Throwing in the Towel. Each week I dive deep into the NFL season and make the tough call on which team it's time to give up on, whether it's due to a string of injuries, a losing streak, or just plain bad luck. Some teams just don't have what it takes to make it to the playoffs. And in today's episode I'll be throwing in the towel on team number 7, so make sure you stay tuned until the end to see who that team is. And per usual, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more weekly NFL insights. We're almost halfway through, sort of, the season there. It used to be the halfway point in week 8 when it was 16 games. Now it's the sort of halfway point now that we have 17 games. But with that, let's go ahead and get into this week's episode. And we start, per usual, there we go, in the AFC East with the Miami Dolphins and New York Jets represented this week. And for the Dolphins, they badly need quarterback Tua Tagovailoa back on the field. Since Tagovailoa's injury, since he went down with a concussion, the offense has all but vanished from this team. They cycled through like 3 different guys at quarterback, and none of them did anything. I mean, it's kind of inexcusable for an offense with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle to do absolutely nothing through the air. But then again, those guys can't do anything when the quarterbacks can't seemingly get them the ball. No team in the league is scoring fewer points than the Dolphins, and if Tua's not back out there soon, it's going to be curtains for this team. But lucky for them, by the way it looks right now, what I'm reading on the internet, it sounds like Tua will be cleared and good to go for week 8. At least that's the way it's trending right now, and hopefully that is the case, because like I said, they need him out there. This team just isn't the same without him. And for the Jets, this was supposed to be the season where all turned around for the Jets. Instead, 7 weeks in, they fired the head coach, they traded for Davante Adams, and they're still losing. They haven't really progressed anywhere. They've just seemingly gone backwards. Aaron Rodgers continues to look his age at times, and now he's dealing with a hamstring injury in addition to all the other ailments that he has. And he's been uncharacteristically reckless with the ball, throwing more interceptions than he usually does. The defensive backfield has been hit hard by injuries. And I guess when it comes to the cold hard truth, this team just isn't very good. So then we move over to the AFC North, which has no representatives this week. The Bengals, Ravens, and Steelers all picked up wins. Steelers seemingly have a new quarterback under center, Russell Wilson, maybe for the rest of the season. I guess we'll see how it plays out. But Justin Fields got him far enough to have a winning record, and Russell Wilson might take him the rest of the way. And and then the Browns, well, unfortunately, the towel was thrown on them last week, and unfortunately for them, the hits just keep on coming. Deshaun Watson tears his Achilles, and he's out for the season. AFC South, lone representative this week from the Lone Star State, the Houston Texans. And until Nico Collins returns, Houston will have to continue to run through Joe Mixon on offense. Good news for them. Mixon is a Pro Bowl caliber playmaker, but without Nico Collins, their offense is kind of, or I should say, though Mixon is a Pro Bowl caliber player, they still need Nico Collins back in the mix because he helps balance out their offense and opens up the space for Tank Dell and Stephon Diggs down the field. In the loss to Green Bay, CJ Stroud had the worst day of his NFL career to date, finishing under 100 yards. So tough day at the office without his number 1 wide receiver. And in the AFC West, a couple representatives here, the Raiders and the Chargers. And for the Raiders, well, it just keeps getting better and better for this team. Aiden O'Connell took over for Gardner Minshew and then proceeded to break his thumb on Sunday against the Rams. So now the Raiders are stuck once again with Gardner Minshew at quarterback. And boy, was he bad in that game. He completed less than half his passes and threw 3 interceptions. After trading Davante Adams, the Raiders appeared to have thrown in the towel on the 2024 campaign. So is it time for me to throw in the towel on them? Foreshadowing, maybe? Moving on to the Chargers. This is the sort of loss that can come back to haunt a franchise late in the season. The sort of defeat that can be the difference between being a wildcard team and a team watching the postseason on TV. The Chargers outplayed the Cardinals in some respects, but the run game was non-existent, never got going. And the Chargers only reached the end zone once and settled for a field goal. In fact, they scored no touchdowns despite a good game from Justin Herbert. The argument can be made that Jim Harbaugh's Chargers got out-toughed Monday night, and if that is the case, that's a bad look for a squad that prides itself on it, that has prided prides itself on its physicality, especially over the first month plus of the season. And so with that, we move into the division representatives for the AFC. We have the Dolphins in the East, the Texans in the South, and the Raiders in the West. Of these three teams, who is going to represent the AFC this week? Well, you probably took a guess, and you probably got it right. It's the Las Vegas Raiders. They are this week's worst team in the AFC. And now with that, we move on to the NFC, and we start in the NFC East, which has no representatives this week. The Cowboys were on a bye, the Eagles got a win, the Commanders got a win despite losing Jaden Daniels, but thankfully it's not a serious injury for him. And the Giants, well, the towel's already been thrown on them, and also they lost. NFC North, lone representative here. Unfortunately, it is my team, the Minnesota Vikings. But despite Sunday's loss to the Vikings, or to the Lions, I should say, the Vikings did not look out of place among the NFC's best. Yes, Minnesota has its first loss on its record, but that's okay. You know, it kind of just gets rid of all that undefeated season nonsense. But then again, I don't think nobody expected them to go undefeated. I certainly didn't. I mean, it would have been cool, but realistically speaking, I didn't think it was possible. In fact, most didn't expect them to start the season 5-1. I'll be honest, I expected them to be a winning team, but I didn't expect them to start as hot as they did. Particularly with Sam Darnold leading the way. But Darnold and the team didn't look out of place against the Lions. Instead, Minnesota played well enough at points to win the game. They came up just short, and yet they showed that they very much belong among this year's top contenders. So they lost, but they were competitive. NFC South, we have every team but the Panthers here. The towel's already been thrown in on the Panthers, so we have the Saints, Falcons, and Buccaneers. And for the Saints, you are looking at a team in free fall. After rolling out the big wins in the first couple of games, the Saints have now dropped 5 straight, and recently getting blown out by the Broncos on Thursday night. They have been decimated by injuries, and their season is simply circling the drain. And Dennis Allen's future as head coach is most certainly in question. Does not appear that there's going to be a fire sale, though. It doesn't look like they're going to be trading off players like some teams. Atlanta Falcons, well, I think we know what this team is. Despite having an abundance of offensive skill talent and arguably the best running back duo in the league, Atlanta's success hinges on the play of Kirk Cousins. The ground game can be great when Atlanta uses it properly or utilizes it properly. The defense, while talented, is dealing with injuries and can't carry the team when Cousins struggles. The Falcons got the bad version of Cousins in Week 7. He had 3 turnovers, and they were blown out at home. To be a title contender, you need Atlanta's got to tweak its formula, and it wouldn't hurt to find somebody who can consistently rush the passer. And for the Buccaneers, well, Monday's loss was a microcosm of everything that's right and wrong with the Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield continues playing at a high level, but turnovers are becoming a significant issue. The defense was shredded on the ground and through the air. The bigger story may well be in the injuries at wide receiver. Chris Godwin out for the season with a dislocated ankle. And Mike Evans, he's going to miss some time after re-aggravating a hamstring injury during the game. The loss of both could very well sink the Buccaneers. And lastly, we conclude in NFC West, which has a lone representative in the 49ers this week. And it certainly seems like the 49ers are going to catch a break on the injury front this season. They'll be desperate to get a win against Dallas in Week 8 and then regroup during the bye in Week 9 and hopefully get some people back. That's probably not good news for the Cowboys, but this is in no way a good position for San Francisco, who lost Brandon Ayuk for the season. Even if the 49ers can get healthier, I'm not sure how far they're going to get in the postseason. The defense continues to take steps backward, and red zone efficiency continues to be an issue for this team. So maybe after the bye they can get McCaffrey back. Deebo Samuel 50-50 at the moment. It seems like to play in week 8, coming off trying to get over a bout of pneumonia. So with that, we move to the NFC Division Representatives, and for the North, we have the Vikings. For the South, we have the Saints, and for the West, we have the 49ers. Now, you look at these 3 teams, and you ask yourself, well, who's going to be the NFC representative this week? Well, the answer might seem pretty obvious, and if you guessed it right, good for you. It's the New Orleans Saints. That is the worst team in the NFC this week, so they are representing. So that is going to be your throwing in the towel Super Bowl matchup for this week. It's going to be the Raiders versus the Saints. Now we move on to the recap section before we get into this week's team. So week 1, Panthers, tough loss against the Commanders. Andy Dalton played terrible, and now he will miss Week 8 and due to a sprained thumb that he sustained in a car accident. So Bryce Young will get another chance to start, so we'll see how that goes for them. Giants, tough loss against the Eagles, completely uncompetitive in that game whatsoever, and Daniel Jones, man, took a beating in that game. Ultimately, the Giants are kind of just stuck with him at quarterback because Drew Lock doesn't appear to be any better. Titans, another tough loss right there. Mason Rudolph, I mean, honestly, it doesn't matter who they start at quarterback, Mason Rudolph or Will Levis. This team is just doing absolutely nothing on offense, that is, and then they just traded away DeAndre Hopkins, which is probably for the best because, man, he wasn't really producing much, which isn't a knock on him. It's just a knock on the Titans. So overall, and he's in a good spot with the Chiefs too. Week 4, Jaguars, good win in London against the Patriots, but I'm not considering rescinding my decision on this team. And then Week 5, we had the Patriots, who Drake May continues to impress, but he's not going to be enough to, he continues to impress. I think that's the most important thing for the Patriots right now. They have been called a soft football team by their head coach, which that doesn't sound good. And then Week 6 with the Browns, as I talked about earlier, Deshaun Watson tears his Achilles, so he's out for the season. Jameis Winston taking over at starter currently, although the Browns seemingly have the itch to play Dorian Thompson-Robinson, but he hasn't been any good when he's taken the field, so I don't know why you wouldn't just roll with Jameis Winston and just let the season play out. Kevin Stefanski handing over play calling duties. Will that elevate the offense? Maybe, maybe not. All I know is the Browns are a franchise that's pretty much been free falling since the season starts, it seems like. So that is recap through the first 6 weeks. Now it is time, the moment we have all been waiting for. Who is team number 7 on this week's Throwing in the Towel? Well, between the Saints and the Raiders, I stuck in the AFC and went with the Las Vegas Raiders. So what is going to happen for this team after this season is over? Well, I don't anticipate any changes being made at head coach, nor do I anticipate any changes being made at GM. Both guys in their first year, while Pierce is in his first year as a full-time coach. I think ultimately you can expect the Raiders to do what they didn't do last year, or this year I should say, and that is draft a quarterback. Aiden O'Connell is clearly not the future of this franchise, and Gardner Minshew, well, doesn't really offer much to the team either too. So you have two guys who aren't very good at quarterback and offering nothing for your offense. So ultimately I think trading Devontae Adams kind of signaled that the team kind of knew that they weren't going to be competitive and doing much this season. So yeah, I would expect that to be the direction for the Raiders. Move on from O'Connell, move on from Minshew, maybe, and then just kind of draft a quarterback and go from there. And with that, that does it for this week 7 edition or episode of Throwing in the Towel. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit that like button down below, and I'll see you all next time.